Hello, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews. As usual, I am Tina. Today I'm doing a book review of Womb City by Talo Tamase. This is a book from Erewhon Books. It's coming out on January 23rd, 2024, so in a couple of weeks. This is a sci-fi dystopian horror book. I received this book from NetGalley in exchange for a fair review. This was one of my most anticipated books for 2024. In fact, I requested the book on NetGalley quite a few months back. It might have even been in like the summer. So I'm incredibly sad to say that I wasn't as into it as I expected to be, and that's just too bad. Sometimes that happens, but first of all, what is this book about? Womb City imagines a dark and deadly future Botswana, rich with culture and true folklore, which begs the question, how far must one go to destroy the structures of inequality upon which a society was founded? How far must a mother go to save the life of her child? Neela seems to have it all. Wealth, fame, a husband, and a child on the way. But in a body her husband controls via microchip and the tailspin of a loveless marriage, her hopes and dreams come to a devastating halt. A drug-fueled night of celebration ends in a hit and run. To dodge a sentencing in a society that favors men, Neela and her side piece, Janith Kasal, finish the victim off and bury the body. But the secret claws its way into Neela's life from the grave. As her victim's vengeful ghost begins exacting a bloody revenge on everyone Neela holds dear, she'll have to unravel her society's terrible secrets to stop those in power and become a monster unlike any other to quench the ghost's violent thirst. This sounds really awesome, right? It sounds fantastic. And that cover, oh my god, that cover is so good. Like, look at it, it's beautiful. I am sure it'll probably win my favorite cover of the year unless something really amazing pops up in the second half of the year. As I mentioned in my stats video at the end of 2023, in 2022, 70% of books published, traditionally published, mind you, were by white people. As I work in the industry, I'm well aware of this trend, which is why I try to seek out books by cultures and backgrounds not my own. Normally, I am rewarded with amazing stories. Unfortunately, Womb City, despite its to die for cover and awesome premise, it just didn't work with me, and I couldn't get into it. I just couldn't. And I'm gonna explain why. I'm obviously trying not to tear it down. I just want to explain myself because I talked about this book a lot in kind of like my anticipated books, things like that. So I think it would be fair to kind of just extrapolate a bit. In truth, I only got to 50% when I DNF'd, so I can't comment on the climax or wrapping up story arcs, but I also feel I read enough to provide a review, at least so you folks can see whether it is something you'd be interested in trying. And I think if it sounds interesting to you, you should try it. There are three things that fail to keep my interest in the story. The first is that there's a large mishmash of sci-fi concepts thrown into this book, some of which were rooted in realism and some that seem fantastical. As such, when the latter showed up, it made me wary of the more realistic aspects. Likewise, because there were so many, to be clear, awesome ideas in this novel, none of them felt fully fleshed out because they were competing for space. If you enjoy a broad collection of sci-fi and horror concepts in your books, though, you might like this, so don't let this deter you. The second reason I wasn't as into the book was because the main character isn't very consistent and at times acts in ways that don't make sense for her character. I understand that she can't leave her husband because it'll screw up her social standing, as is related to this consciousness swapping thing, as well as overall sexism and patriarchy. There's a lot going on in this book. And because he would react violently. But cheating on him seems like that will also cause his wrath, so I'm not sure why she felt the need to fool around with this other guy. It kind of felt like a contrived way to get the story started. I don't know. Likewise, she's also self-reportedly obsessed with having a baby and needing money for it, but instead of working, she spends all her time with her side piece. I was completely befuddled by her actions and choices, and I found her unsympathetic in most aspects. Though the point the novel was making about systemic prejudice and the deck being stacked against certain people in society was an important and poignant point. I totally understood that, and I got what the book was laying down. I just wish it had been extrapolated on with more nuance, or perhaps a more direct allegory. It was kind of somewhere in the middle for me, so I wasn't really sure how I felt about it. The last aspect had to do with the pacing and the writing. It's a little bit all over the place. The horror aspects of the story don't even start until after the midway point. In fact, they were just starting when I gave up reading. And certain aspects are over-explained while others are glossed over. And there's quite a bit of info dumping, yet I was never entirely sure the situation of the world at large, Botswana, or even details about the main character's life. It's frustrating because there was a lot of things about this book that I really, really wanted to like. I think it has some great things going for it theme-wise, the commodification of bodies, feminism, identity, the state in its control, etc., etc. But I think it just needed another developmental edit to refocus and tighten it a little bit, because I think if some of the stuff at the start could have been kind of trimmed down and maybe, the world building tightened a little bit more, I would have been super into it. I just there were some things about the book that kept me. I just wasn't interested in continuing with the second half of the story, unfortunately. But yeah, overall, I mean, fascinating concept, really cool idea. Some things about it just didn't kind of hit me. I also was in a bit of a kind of a, not a reading slump, but I've been going through something in my life, like my professional life, that's been kind of throwing off, I think, my reading a bit, because I find that the last few reviews have been kind of on, not negative, but on the like more critical side, and I wonder if that's kind of leeching from that as well. So that could be it too. Let's hope that the next few reviews will be a bit more, oh yeah, you should totally read this. Though I do think that if this book does sound interesting to you, you should totally check it out, because it is interesting. It's just, yeah, maybe I just wasn't in the right frame of mind. So yeah, thank you, and thank you again to the publisher for the e-arc. I really do appreciate it.